Hello, world. Welcome to another episode of Fuente and Meerapfel Meet the Professor. Hey, Mel, what's up?
Hi, Jose. How are you? You
Good.
did great.
Well, I've been on the road for 4 weeks. I got out of my last event, arrived at the hotel like 12 o'clock last night in Munich, got up at 5:30 and arrived here at 2:30, had something to eat, smoked a cigar, spent some time with Jasper, some time with Emma, and now ready to roll. Rich, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Are you still in Tennessee, Melanie?
Yep, I'm in Tennessee. I'll be flying out of Nashville on Tuesday.
Okay, that's great.
Well, guys, it's great to see you. And today we have a special guest, a very, very special guest and a very special friend. Probably one of the top retailers in the world, the one and only Mr. Mitchell Orchant. Welcome, Mitchell.
Much. Nice
Welcome. Yes, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
Mitchell, how are you?
Very well, thanks. It's just before my bedtime. It's 7 o'clock in the UK. It's a lot sunnier and lighter in daytime there, wherever you guys are.
Well, Rich is in Georgia, Melanie's in Tennessee, and I'm in Macedonia. So all different parts of the world.
So you're okay with the Southern charm?
I only wish you'd spell my name correct. It's not Orchant, it's Orchant.
I didn't do that part. I get, yeah. I don't deal with that one. It's, I guess, but it's fixed.
I think it'll be fixed.
Anyway, Mitchell, it's always great. It's always great to see you. And I mean, there's a lot of people.
Hi guys, I see this. Bye.
Jasper has to every week do his claim to fame introduction. Mitchell, you have been, without a doubt, one of the worldwide authorities when it comes to cigars. So what makes Mitchell Orchant start into the cigar business? How does Mitchell get involved?
Hobby turned into a business, really. It was originally, my pastime from when I was about 15 years old and snagging cigars out of my dad's humidor and enjoying it all through my teens and my 20s, selling some cigars through the bars and restaurants in my father's hotels, and ultimately doing it part-time as a serious business, as part of another business I was in. Hi, Carlito. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, my brother? Good to see you.
How are you,
Mitchell? I just want to say something. I miss Jeremiah, behind the cockpit, because when I'm saying hello, whoever's coordinating this had me cut off, so yeah. But big hugs, man. Thanks for letting me join. Hello, everyone. Mitchell, big hugs, man. Thank you so much. It means a lot to us to have such an important and motivating player of the industry to join Meet the Professor.
I'm just looking around my shoulder if you were talking about me or somebody else there, Carlito.
No, everybody knows who I'm speaking about. Absolutely.
Back to your question, Jose. So I was started in the cigar business very early on, sort of 1991, 92, through my convenience stores, where I was selling a range of cigars because I wanted to buy my own cigars at trade price. And then in 1993, I started Mitchell's Cigar Company and went on the internet. We were the first cigar company in the UK on the World Wide Web. So we were very early in on the internet. And I went into the business full time in 1997. And the rest is sort of history. So that's the background. It was my hobby. It still is my hobby. But thankfully, I became a cigar specialist somewhere along the way. And it's been my business and my life. And, you know, it's probably fair to say I eat, sleep, breathe the cigar industry because I absolutely love it.
Well, Mitchell, I'm going to tell you something. Coincidentally, and it makes me, you know, I'm very happy to hear this story, because coincidentally, that's when we planted our first seeds of hope that we called on Chateau de Fuente the same year. So we kind of had another beginning in our lives at the same time. So I really believe that things happen for a reason and everything. And that was a great year, starting a lot of good things. So congratulations, because I started and I'm still trying to push forward. You started and you've taken it to another stratosphere.
Well, in a different way, yeah.
Mitchell, in a certain way, and we've been friends for many, many years, and I followed your career and the utmost respect that I've had for you. And but if you look at what retail business was in the UK traditionally for many years, in a certain way, Mitchell Orchant brings a totally different view of merchandising, setting up the stores, bringing out the online. Tell us a little bit about that, the thoughts behind that.
The thoughts behind it was that I wasn't obviously originally a cigar specialist or a cigar retailer. So my background was in the property and hotel business, particularly in London. And after that in the petrol station, gas station and convenience store business, where I was pretty highly trained in retail, although obviously not in tobacco, although I was actually dealing with some tobacco back then. So when I would look at cigar stores, which of course I love to do all over the world, but particularly the UK, I looked at them with a very critical eye as both a consumer and a retailer that had studied merchandising and retail practice, retail operating standards to a great degree over a lot of years. And I also knew a lot about hospitality from the hotel business and housekeeping. So consequently, I could look at a cigar store and pick it to pieces in my mind and think and see clearly everything that I thought was done wrong in terms of how I would operate it. And ultimately, I was the guy to put my money where my mouth was and open cigar stores all over the UK and actually do things to the standards that I demand, which I think are better than most, not all, but better than most cigar stores in the UK. So I think I just approached it from a very different angle, which I think has worked very well. And it certainly has worked well because obviously we've got a huge amount of loyal customers in retail and mail order. So yeah, that was my thoughts on the retail side. And of course we originally started as an e-commerce company in '93 and then reincarnated in '97 as a full-time business. And I very much believed back then in e-commerce. I could see the writing was on the wall. I could see the timeline of technology moving very fast. My original colleague, who's now my partner and co-director, Laura Bitters now, was a tech wizard and is a tech wizard. She's absolutely a genius on e-commerce. And we could see that technology was moving so fast and prices were decreasing in terms of technology that we simply had to be very successful ultimately in the cigar business online, even though everybody in the UK cigar trade was saying we were crazy. It's a touchy-feely product and people would never give up retail to buy online. But to me, it didn't make any sense what they were saying. They were like stuck in a different time zone, a different time era. It was like a disconnect with reality and what was happening. And our ability was to read our market, be very good at e-commerce, and then 4 years later, change the model and go into retail, but keep them as two very separate, dedicated divisions that were working independently, but at the same time, hand in hand, but they would do their own specific task very, very well. So the retail outlets were run independently of mail order and would be highly professionally run and wouldn't be bothered by mail order. And the mail order division would be very professionally run and wouldn't be interfered with or annoyed by retail or, for that matter, retail customers. So consequently, we tried to give a very high level of service and a very high level of product in both divisions independently. Whereas our competitors, when they started to go into e-commerce, they did it in the same premises, at the same time, with the same people as retail. And we always believed you couldn't actually cross those two together perfectly and get a good result. We thought you'd end up getting a 50% result on retail and a 50% result on e-commerce. And I think we've probably proved that.
No, without a doubt, you changed, like I said before. Let me ask you this, Mitchell. When somebody comes in, because everybody wants to, be with the best of the best, wants to be in London and all those shops that you have. Tell me something when somebody comes in, a salesman or the owner of the company, and tries to sell you something. What's something that pisses you off during that conversation with that person?
Well, are you talking about cigar company sales reps?
Yes, yes.
I basically stopped seeing them about 15 years ago. I tell everyone, email me, send me price lists, send me photos. I mean, I do see some of the boys. I see Roy from Davidoff. He's a great supporter, and he's actually a very, very good cigar specialist. I'm struggling to think of anybody else that I see. I haven't had a Hunters and Frankout rep that I've seen in many a year, because my time is very, very precious in the nicest possible way, and I prefer to dedicate my time to my clients rather than sales reps. So anyone who wants to sell me something basically has to do it over email.
Mitchell, what is the biggest threat right now that you see in the UK towards our industry?
Well, we have this track and trace legislation coming up, which is completely ridiculous, but I've chosen to leave my colleagues in management to deal with that for now. That is definitely a threat. There is no other looming legislation that I'm concerned about in the UK. Our biggest problem is supply problems of various things, from lighters to certain SKUs of Havana cigars to Padron cigars to various other brands. STG brands are very, very problematical for us in the UK. So holes in our range and in our inventory are the biggest threat, and there's no sign of that improving at all. So that is some concern across hard goods as well as tobacco. Fortunately, our range is absolutely gigantic. I think we've got about 10,000 SKUs. So there's always something for somebody to switch to if there's something out of stock.
I'll ask you this question, Mitchell. What keeps Mitchell Orchant up at night?
Well, in terms of worrying?
Worrying, the industry, spirits, we'll get into that. What keeps you up at night, thinking a lot, giving it a long thought?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I haven't got a worry in the world. When I go to sleep, I've got nothing to think about. I've had a great day. Every day is a beautiful day.
Carlito, I wish we could have something like Mitchell. I mean, we got to have a meeting with Mitchell to give us the secret about that.
Well, I'll tell you the secret. I've been working since I was 15 years old, and I was 57 a couple of weeks ago. And I built a very successful business, and I've built a most fabulous, dedicated, hard-working, experienced and talented team around me that I absolutely love working with. And they have all the worries, and they're up at night. And that's the honest truth. So,
Carlito, you're muted.
Mitchell just gave us the answer. It's the 10 years difference. When I was 57, I used to sleep like a baby.
there you go.
Everything else we have in common instead of the 10 years.
Does that mean I have to start worrying in 10 years' time again? Or are you still sleeping well?
No, I'm going to start sleeping in the next 10 years, but hopefully it's not permanently.
Mitchell, without a doubt, and I think for us to have you on the show, it's not just an honor, and because the friendship and the respect that we have for you and the industry has for you. But without a doubt, the industry, especially cigar smokers in the UK, in the last 7 or 8 years of change, and I think more in the last 2 years, and I think it will continue more. Tell us a little bit about what Mitchell Orchant has seen in the past years, because this is history in the making.
What I've seen in the industry in terms of change?
Yes, but in the UK especially, sales-wise, cigars-wise.
Well, I can obviously go back a quarter of a century and longer in the UK cigar industry, but if I go back just in little pieces of time, when I started, the business was 99.5% Cuban and 0.5%, brands like Don Ramos, Lion Victor from Hunters and Franco, which were pretty cool to sell as something a little bit different, but there wasn't really much traction in New World. And then if you fast forward it sort of 5 years, or 5 to 10 years, so you go back sort of 15 years ago, I could see that the consumer pattern was changing. The consumer demographic was changing. The older generation, sadly, actually were dying out. So my original clients from like 28, 29 years ago, a lot of them were dying. It was quite sad. They were the diehard Havana cigar smokers. And there was a new generation coming through. And I sort of embraced the New World cigar area quite substantially very, very early on to give the new generation a bigger choice, a wider choice, rather than, carrying on the whole Monte Cristo and Upman Petit Corona type of thing, that this was what you smoke. And when you get a bit older, you can smoke a Monte too. And, you want something stronger, have a Bolivar or a Partagas. I decided to sort of just change the story, change the game, and change the options a bit for a newer generation, because I just thought that these products are available. The world is opening up. People are buying from abroad, traveling abroad, buying there, and coming back and saying, well, why can't I have a Padron, a Fuente, a this, or that? Of course, we did Davidoff as well. I should have mentioned we always did Davidoff from the start. So I very much embraced a lot of the big brands initially of New World cigars, and subsequently some of the boutique brands that I particularly liked or admired and thought that they had blends of merit and character, and that they'd be well received by the UK cigar smokers' palate. And, again, fast forward another 5 years, we went from, 99% Cuban and 1% New World to 90-10, 80-20, 70-30. And if you fast forward to today, we are probably close to 60-40, 60% Cubans, 40% New World. And we are predicting, the process has been sped up by the whole pandemic and the whole lockdown situation, but we are predicting by the end of next year, the market will go to 50-50 Cuban versus New World in the UK. Now, I should point out that this is not at the expense of Cuban cigars. This is because our market is growing substantially in the UK. But as the market grows, we're taking on a lot more new customers, and a lot of the new customers are starting on New World cigars. So it's quite a seismic shift in the demographic of the customer and their smoking preferences. They're mixing it up. They're trying New World. They're trying a few Cubans. Some decide they like Cubans. They think they're the best. We don't. We think they're wonderful. I love Havana cigars, as you know. It's my first love. But I also fully embrace the fact that New World cigars are different, and but for other people they can be the best. I don't really think there is a best when it comes to cigars. It's just such a personal decision. I smoke both these days, mainly Cubans, but certainly quite a few New World cigars. So that's been the seismic shift in the UK market, and that continues. And that's a fascinating thing, because for me to be able to identify the correct brands for my customers in the UK market, as opposed to taking every brand and you take it, you have a sellout, and then they crash and burn. We're not interested in doing fashion brands. We're interested in doing quality brands that will have sales traction, because people will become devotees of that brand. Maybe switch sizes, up, down, sub brands, new sizes, but we're not interested in fashion. We're interested in quality.
Melanie, I think that where's Mel? for the questions today to nail the professor. Guys, send them into to Melody so you guys can see if you could nail me today. So we have a segment where they've been trying for a year and a half to nail me. Probably if Mitchell comes up with something, he'll probably nail me. And if Mitchell nails me, I'll be happy with that. You know, it's funny. I met Mitchell many, many years ago. And by the way, Joe Phillips and many of your friends sent regards. Joe would have been on the show today, but he has a family date. And I remember one time smoking with Mitchell, and he smoked a cigar. I'm not going to name the brand. And when he smoked it, he said, "This is a cigar that could probably be sold, consumed, and enjoyed by the people in the UK." And that was maybe 2009, 2010. And every time I talk with Mitchell, we always talk about, you know, his love for Cubans, and I have my opinions on that. But it's amazing to see, because to be honest, I thought one of the last countries that I would see the change would be the UK. And I've been following the UK for many, many years. And Mitchell knows I have many, many friends there. And to me, it's been amazing. But Mitchell, outside, you know, the issues that the Cubans have, we're not going to get into those details. But let me ask you this. The new guys that come in 23, 24, 25, let's say out of 20 to go to the shop, how many would go to New World and how many would go to what their fathers used to smoke? Montecristo, Polarrañaga, Romeo. How do you see that?
Well, currently 4 out of 10 new customers in retail and mail order are buying New World cigars. So it's quite a shift. Huge shift.
Carlito, your thoughts on that?
No, I think I definitely agree. You know, I always thought that you know, Great Britain, England, London especially is so traditional, and you know, the history, you know, Churchill and everything being so, you know, embedded with Cuban history and Cubans having dominating power with distribution. I mean, with everything, the relationship and so forth. I know it's been very, very difficult. Maybe Mitchell remembers Joseph Samuel. I mean, we go back to Joseph Samuel, and you know, and London and so forth, and in England. So, you know, we go back a long time, and absolutely, it is truly amazing. And I feel, you know, very blessed and proud to be living this era that my grandfather was not able to, or my father did not live most of his life to see this. And it's just wonderful, because I think a lot, as you said, the pandemic has changed things. And I think one of the things that has helped contribute to this expansion of new people and knowledge and so forth has been programs and the internet and these blogs and you know, conversations, you know, that like you, Mitchell, have had with, you know, Light 'em Up and you know, with Coop and everyone. I think it's brought the world together. And what makes me even more proud and what gratifies me the most is that, you know, the people who enjoy our cigars, or my market or my target, is not the people in Miami, you know, drinking Cuban coffee and playing dominoes, or the people up in Boston and Fenway Park or in California. It's human beings around the world. And thanks to Mitchell and thanks to so many people who have given us an opportunity, it's just so rewarding to know that we are able to please people, because that's what all cigar manufacturers and what we call the free world, what we want to accomplish, you know, is just to be able to share our love and to be able to reach out and be given, you know, to have a level playing field where we're able to express our art, our emotions, and everything through the cigars that we make.
Well, we can do that if the government stop bloody legislating.
Yeah.
We have a bit of freedom of choice, you know. It's not a product like a cigarette, as we all know. It's more likely to relax you than do you any health detriments. You're not likely to smoke 4 cigars one night and go home and beat up your partner, like having a bottle of drink or 2. So if we were just left alone to do our thing, I think everybody would be a lot happier. And of course, if we contribute, you know, companies like your wonderful company and our little company, we contribute greatly to the economy and the health services and taxes and employment, and I could go on and on and on. So it's a funny old scene when you think how victimized we are by governments and legislation and ignorant politicians the world over.
You know, we've been saying for a while, Mitchell, and it all started, I'll never forget, a friend of all of ours, Rafael Nodal, a real personality, you know, tells his story at one of the big seminars in the Big Smoke, you know, how he came from Mariel in the boat lift and what a great, you know, country freedom and opportunity and so forth. And he says, you know, we only have one in the cigar industry. We only have one competitor nowadays. It's not ourselves. It's the government. And
Sure.
it's, you know, and he coined that, and it's been repeated many, many times because I've come to realize that, you know, we're all one big family, whether it's Cuban cigar makers, you know, aside from politics, as Jose always says, you know, I travel to Russia or I go to China or I'm in Europe and I see a cigar maker and I hear the accent and all of a sudden the boundaries melt. They have a cigar, Carlito, this and that. Hey, compadre, how are you? Blah, blah. Where are you from in Cuba? My grandfather was from Guinness and this. And all of a sudden, with the cigar, there's no political difference or ideology difference. We realize we're all one. So I totally agree with you and everything. And it's wonderful that we're able to share that world together.
But that's so true. And I can also say by extension, when we heard with, different crowds of guys, it's interesting what an eclectic mix of people we have. A silly example, we've got a big crowd of London boys. We used to get together every few months pre-pandemic. And we once went round the table, I think there were about 16 of us. And we worked out we had everything from a train driver to, guys that were employed, guys that owned their own businesses, a politician, one guy who was an absolute captain of industry. And we'd all been herping together for years, for like the last 16, 17 years. And, there was the common denominator was the cigar. So it was quite funny to think what a leveler it is. And the other funny thing was we mentioned how when we first got together, we'd be talking about all the boozing and broads that we were with, and now we were talking about all the aches and pains and drugs we were on.
Yeah, and I bet part of that group was probably also bishops, rabbis, and even people from parliament. I mean, from all walks of life.
Yeah, we had different nationalities, and we also had 5 different religions, which was also very funny.
Of course.
Oh, definitely. Mitchell, one of the things that also maybe majority of cigar lovers know who Mitchell Orchant is, but I think there's a lot of people on the show today that don't know that also your company is very, very involved in spirits, and you have your own production and everything. Tell us a little bit about that, or how did that start? Let's go back a little bit.
Okay, so I think it was around about 2002. I won a Davidoff trip to Dominican Republic for being, I guess, the top retailer in England. And another guy called Ron Morrison won the trip for being the top retailer in Scotland. And we met on that trip and had a fabulous time. And we got on like a house on fire. He owned one cigar store called Robert Graham in Glasgow, and by the time we finished the trip, we decided that we were going to go into partnership and we were going to expand the business. And his Robert Graham store was predominantly a whiskey store with a small humidor. So we got together, went into partnership, and opened another 4 stores, so we had 5. And we started our own independent distilled brand of single malt whiskey, which was very successful, called Dancing Stag. Then we made a range called Treasurer, which is a cask strength range, multi-award winning. And then 5 years ago, we exited the business and sold it very successfully. And my partner, who's a little bit older than me, Ron Morrison, took a break, retired, went back to Florida where he lives. And I carried on expanding Cigars Limited, which had always sold a range of whiskey and premium spirits, but wasn't a independent bottler. Didn't have its own ranges at all, and it was very ancillary to the business. Anyway, after around 6 months, my head was cleared from one business. I was just focusing on my main larger business, Cigars Limited, which was expanding at quite a dramatic rate. So I made the call to my partner Ron, my ex-partner, my partner, who thought he had retired, and I said, I actually can't do this on my own. I think you need to get over here and give me a hand, and let's see what we can do with this business now, which is growing exponentially. blow me down. He arrived the next day, and he said, "I'll set up the spirits department for you, and we'll see what we can do." And that was I can't remember how many years ago now, 5 years ago, and 4.5 years ago. And he has created an enormous spirits department, as well as our own brand of spirits called Staladew Whiskey. And we own a distillery in Wales called Snowdonia Distillery, which creates a range of award-winning gins, vodkas, and we finish rum there as well. And yeah, he heads up a very substantial division in the business. So we're quite a serious player in the premium spirits business now in the UK.
Mitchell, you have become very prominent and very respected for the pairings and the tastings that you hold. And through this joint venture, could you tell us or inform us how this has helped to educate consumers with palate, with taste, and so forth, and to to bring this education to the consumer?
I'm not sure I should take that much credit for it. We just try to do a lot of tastings, whether they are virtual online tastings, which we did throughout the lockdown during the pandemic. Prior to that, more or less every week, we've always got a tasting event in one of our stores, and we've just started that program up again in the last few weeks. And we get fabulous brand ambassadors from the spirits companies, or if it's our own brands of whiskey or gin or whatever it might be, we have our own brand ambassadors. And we get brand ambassadors from the cigar companies, or we do it ourselves. My managers are very proficient. So we try and just educate the consumer, our guests, on what we think works well with the cigar. And we try and keep them to just keep their minds open and ask themselves, when you're pairing up a premium spirit with a premium cigar, are you trying to make the drink challenge or complement the cigar? And there is no correct answer, because for some they want it to challenge, and for others they want it to complement. For me, it should always be it should be complementary and not challenging, because I read challenging as overpowering. But there is a school of thought that you should also challenge the flavors of the cigar with the drink. So I just try and take people through this program, and it's very easy to tell people, you're going to taste this in the cigar, you're going to taste this in the scotch. I don't really want to do that, because I think it's very subjective. I think it's very individual, the experience, and I just want to give general characteristics of each product. And then I like to ask people, what are you experiencing? And some might not have a very refined palate, and that's okay as well. And they might just say, well, it's a great smoke and I like the scotch. Okay, that works for me. Not everybody has to be a massive aficionado or a connoisseur or an expert, but I just think it's very interesting to get people's views, because sometimes somebody will say, well, I'm picking up this note in this cigar, and I'm picking up this taste, this taste on the side or the back or the front of my palate from this whiskey. And I find that fascinating, because sometimes I'm like, wow, that person's got a great palate. Not to say everyone else isn't as good, or their opinions aren't as valid. I just find it very interesting to hear other people's opinions, rather than me impose my opinion on them. And they should try and think, oh, well, if he's tasting that, I'm going to taste it. Because it doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Carlito, if you're in the sunshine, smoking and drinking the same as me, but I'm in the freezing, snowy, cold here, we're going to have a different smoking experience. If you're in a good mood and I'm in a bad mood, we're going to have a different smoking experience. And, we can go on and on with all the different variations.
Yeah, absolutely. New fresh herring doesn't taste the same in the hot Caribbean as it does in the cold ports of Holland with a little Genevieve to wash it down. Genevieve.
There we go with
right, brother.
There we go with the Harry. Melanie, I think we need to do the hotspot. I don't know if Melly's had problem with her connection. Melanie, I guess that Melanie has a problem. Also, there's a segment we do nail the professor.
Well, I think she's up in the hills of Tennessee. They must have the same problem we have in Dominican Republic with sometimes Wi-Fi. What do you say, Rich?
What?
Oh, Melanie's back in the back room. You got to bring her forward.
Oh, is that what it is?
Okay, I'm not handling that part.
I thought she was trying to avoid Abner from catching her. Little Abner.
Mitchell, let me ask you this. During COVID, and this has been worldwide, and I try to keep in contact with distributors, store owners all over. And a lot of people say that during COVID, we know it because of the numbers out there, nobody can produce enough cigars. The consumption is going to hit the United States, probably 400 million cigars. And we don't know. And I've been traveling all over Europe, and there's a shortage of cigars from everybody. But my question to you is this. During COVID times, how many young smokers have you seen?
An enormous quantity, tons of young smokers. Tons of 20 to 30-year-old is our biggest area of growth.
Okay. Melanie, I think we have to put Mitchell now in the hot spot.
Are you sure? Well, I thought we might do the nail the professor first.
Okay, let's do nail the professor. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's trying to avoid that segment.
No. Anybody can nail me.
All right.
Not yet.
All right, here we go. So, nail the professor. All right, is there or can you make a hybrid wrapper, like crossbreeding a Habano and a Jalapa wrapper?
Of course. Many people have done it. The Cubans have done it. Nestor has done it. The Olivas have done it. The Perez have done it. I mean, they've done. Just start off when you had the original Corojo. What happened? Corojo, because it had a huge problem with black shank and blue mold. What did the Cubans do? They started and created Criollo 98, and they did Corojo 99. Hybrids, a lot of companies have been working with them, and I mean, it can be done, but not necessarily works all the time. What do you think, Carlito?
I think you just got nailed.
Yeah, tell me.
No, because Jalapa is not a seed. It's
No,
a region.
Jalapa is a region.
Yeah, but you can't cross a region with a seed.
Oh, I didn't get the question correct.
Okay, backtrack. Who find out who it was, Melody, what part of the world. The professor just got nailed.
No, but I didn't, to be honest.
That was a trick question.
Okay, listen. No, but I didn't hear. Look, it could have been nailed, but what I'm trying to tell you is that I didn't hear. I just heard Jalapa. Of course, Jalapa, Condega, Ometepe, and Esteli, 4 different regions. Now, we all know that, but I didn't hear the question correct.
What do you say? What do you say, Mitchell? Do we give him a pass on this one?
Give him a pass on this one.
Yeah, let's give him a pass. You know, technically he's been off today and everything, so we'll give him a pass.
What's the next one?
All right, this is from Andy. Cigars are for oh, I'm sorry. That was not it. Okay. Quinn. Is it now possible to come over Cuban tobacco to blend cigars in other countries?
You can do it in anywhere except the United States, and we know people that are doing it. So that's the truth.
All right, and then this is from Sai. What is the main difference between sun-grown and shade-grown wrapper, and what is the process used to shade grow? Which is the richer flavor leaf?
Listen, the process is totally different. You have sun-grown, and one of the major countries to grow sun-grown wrapper is Ecuador. What happens in Ecuador? You have 320 days out of the year where the clouds are very, very low. So the effect that the shade does, that it's estimated takes away between 30 to 35% of the sun hitting it. And the other thing with that is, if you do shade, you know for a fact that you're going to have a thinner leaf and it's going to have more elasticity and more oils to it. Now, sun-grown, I personally think you're going to have, when the crop is really good, you're going to have more nutrients, more oils to it, but it's not going to look as pretty as a Connecticut grown in Connecticut, or a nice wrapper grown in Cuba, or a nice wrapper grown in Jalapa, or a beautiful wrapper like grown in Chateau de la Fuente. Right, Carlito?
I agree, Professor. I'm not going to blast you on this one. I'm going to keep quiet. But it's absolutely true. All tobacco is grown in the sun, with the exception of certain wrappers that are grown in the shade. It's very, very expensive to grow tobacco in the shade. And usually shade tobacco, as you say, it has a lot of elasticity, it has oils, the veins are thinner, and it's ideal for wrappers. But it also has a lot more flexibility, but it's not really favorable for fillers. Fillers, you need tobacco with a lot of structure,
a lot of
sun, and so forth. So I agree with you totally.
Thank you.
Very few wrappers, unless it's the big companies, big families, are shade grown, or small people, small families in Cuba, because of the expense. It's very, very expensive. And many times with shade grown wrappers, since the tobacco grows so quickly and is so fragile, you have to tie each plant one by one with a string. You got to go by manually every week, loosen that slip knot, and go up the next 3 leaves. I mean, it's very, very labor intensive. It's almost like growing something in a nursery, but it's the whole entire, tobacco plantation covered.
Any more, Melanie?
No, actually, that was the last one. So
Okay, so let's continue right away with you. Let's continue with you right away, and let's put Mitchell in the hot spot.
All righty, let's do the hot spot. So, Mitchell, usually there's the music, and now it's the hot spot. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's get a little more deeper about who you are and maybe some insights that you might have and can share with us. So, my first question to you is always, this is one of my favorites lately, is what is the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
In the cigar industry?
It doesn't matter. Any in life in general? Sometimes it can apply to every industry.
Oh my God, I don't know. Probably the best piece of advice since I went into this business was from my nephew Gabriel when he was a little boy, and I was getting very frustrated with my computer crashing. And he said, "Just take it easy, Unc. Just do a restart. Everything will be fine." There you go.
I love that.
And now
That is actually really good
he
advice.
lives in Beverly Hills, so he must have been right.
It must be.
That's great. All right, who is your celebrity crush?
My celebrity crush. Oh my God, Farrah Fawcett.
Yes.
Now I'm really showing my age because she's not even alive anymore.
What?
Sorry.
She's
Farrah
beautiful
Fawcett.
though. She's great. Yeah. All right. Let's see. What's the wildest thing you've ever done?
Oh my God, probably nothing. I'm really not a very wild person. I'm really very down to earth and very grounded. I don't know, probably driven at 150 miles an hour or 150 miles an hour in some crazy car of mine. That's about as wild as I get, I think.
What is your favorite thing about yourself?
The fact that I chose the best wife in the world. Ta-da!
Somebody's getting brownie points tonight. That's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you know what they say, behind every
here's
man is a woman.
This is good. All right. What is your favorite color to wear?
Blue.
Ooh, I like that color too. Nice. And what's an activity that you do not find fun at all?
I only do activities that are fun. I don't know. What's an activity that I don't do? Right. Admin and accounting work. I can't stand it, but it's part of the business. That's what I can't stand. Anything administration and accounting, and I have to do tons of it.
I can help you out with that.
Okay. You enjoy
All
it.
right. All right. Of all the personal questions that I could ask, what's the one personal question that you would not want me to ask?
Got no idea.
That's a good one.
Sorry, I've got absolutely no idea. But I wouldn't want you to ask. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm a self-confessed cigar bore. You know, all I do really is business because I enjoy it. And outside business, I have my hobby is cars. And really outside that, there's nothing. I spend my spare time hanging out with my cigar buddies or my family. That's my whole life. You know, I'm sorry that I'm not a more interesting person to interview, but there's really not much to.
You're doing great.
Well, actually, I mean, I could tell you, I've spent some pretty crazy times with my cigar crowd, my buddies in New York and California, where we've drunk quite a few hotel bars dry of all the champagne on the business expense account, and then our finance director wants to kill me when I get back. I think that's probably the question that shouldn't ask. Apart from that, it doesn't get much more interesting.
Really? I like that. All right, let's see. One more we'll do. What is your biggest? Okay, actually, because you got the retail side of this. So, what's some of your biggest pet peeves when it comes to cigar smokers in the lounge?
Well, all the standard stuff. Obviously, I'm very aware I don't like people coming in with their own cigars. That's an absolute no-no. I can't stand it when somebody tells me the only way to actually cut a cigar is to go, like that. I've had a few people teaching me that over the years and shagging the cap and rubbish going everywhere. My other peeve is people telling me that this cigar doesn't taste right and it must be a fake because the one he had 5 years ago tasted different. I've had that so obviously
That's a good one.
I don't know. Those are the main things, really. This can't be a Cuban as it did 5 years ago. Then there's the constant debate over mold versus plume. I'm like, okay, you're the expert. I'm not an expert. What can I tell you? Or my favourite one, because you're asking me about retail, but really my department is more e-commerce. What makes me laugh is just trying to think. What makes me laugh is the people that just basically tell me, this cigar should be exactly like this, and therefore it cannot be right. And I've checked on all the forums, and they say this. I'm like, okay, well, the forums must be a bigger expert than me. I've been doing this 30 years. I've been to cigar school. I've read every single cigar book. I've been to Dominican Republic. I've into the factories there years ago. I've been to every Havana cigar factory. I've been to Cuba 120 times. But it's okay. You just check on Google and you're going to get a better answer than you're going to get from me. There you go. You really got my pet peeve there.
That was very good.
And you must have heard it before, though, Carlito, Jose. You must have heard stuff like that.
All the time. Right on.
I'm like, okay, you're the expert. Like, whatever.
Mitchell, but let me tell you something. The one that I already stay away from on Facebook is the one, the mold versus plume. It's so easy to determine because you're going to see mold, first of all, greenish, bluish, and like a foam. And when you see plume, it's like a soft dust that's going to come off. Right. Even if the dust doesn't come off right away, but you could just see it. I've stayed away from that discussions for years because there's even some guy in Australia that says that plume does not exist. So I'm not going to get into that one.
I mean, you're 100% right. And remember, I was trained by Simon Chase, the late, great Simon Chase of Hunts and Franco, who was the most brilliant man I've ever met in my life in the cigar industry. And he basically said exactly what you just said, mold versus plume. And it's as simple as that. And he would say to me, if you can brush it off with a soft tissue or a shaving brush, which is what we do, cut, light, smoke, enjoy. That's it. That's it.
Right.
He's like plume. He said, don't even call it plume. We call it plume. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Cut, light, enjoy.
But the funny thing about it is that people do not understand because you have all these idiots out there with all these theories some of them have never bought a cigar, have never aged a cigar, have never smoked a cigar with this. And what it tells you is that your humidor is working in perfect condition. It has been kept in excellent conditions. And we have to add this to it. It was great tobacco. Because I've never seen plume on a shitty cigar in my life.
but I've seen a lot of bugs on shitty cigars.
Well, that's the one. I think that was the one. That was the first thing I learned is that you can't make a cigar better just by sticking it, or a shitty cigar sticking it into a humidor. You cannot make it better.
Correct. This becomes an aged shitty cigar. That's exactly. Then there's another people saying to me, there's a little bit of a white or green patch on my wrapper, usually of a Havana cigar, not so much on the New World cigar. And that must be mold. And I'm like, nope, actually, that's just a natural discoloration on the wrapper leaf. The wrapper grows and it's green and it changes color as it cures in the curing bars. And it's completely natural. It could be a little crack in the muslin and the sun comes through, or a few other bits and pieces. And, most people say, oh, didn't realize, but 1 out of 10 will say, you're a liar, you sold me a moldy cigar. I'm like, I got to tell you something. I'm not as big as Carlito in business, but thank God I've got a pretty big business, and I'm not in the business of doing somebody out of one cigar. It won't change my life, kind of thing. I just like to give a bit of genuine advice. But some people, I've seen it on the internet, so you kind of give up. What else do you?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Green spots, little green spots. It's natural in the curing. There's so many things that could cause that. Not necessarily is it a fungus, or not necessarily is what people think of mold. Absolutely not. And there's a lot of tobaccos that's characteristic of that type of tobacco, of where it's grown in the fields and so forth. And sometimes I know, as a little boy, I remember when all the wrappers that were used were Havana wrappers growing up in Ybor City and Tampa. And I remember all the old timers always telling me they selected for their smokes the one that had the little white specks, has white specks on it, because they thought that was the sweetest wrappers. And usually those are the wrappers that are probably like, second, 2.5 priming, second to third priming, that are very thin, very sweet. And those are the ones that pick up to get the specs and everything. So there's a reason for things. So it's not necessarily going to make a cigar taste bad, make it unsmokable. It could be a delicious cigar.
Yep.
I still like to know, though, because that's kept me, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. Thank you, Mitchell. I'm not going to sleep again. How could a cigar be different today than what it was 5 years ago when you smoked it, of any brand in the world? You really have customers asking you things like that?
I really do.
You need to bring them and put them on your tasting, on your spirit program. They need to level down a little bit, a couple of notches.
I wish I could, and the joke is, I still, because I'm very passionate about educating people about cigars,
of course,
I still take the time to do a zillion personal replies every day, every night, and I try and explain, it's the same as you buying a wine with 2021 vintage or 2017 vintage. Those wines are going to be different because of the vintage and because of the age process, and it's the same with tobacco. Certainly with Cuban tobacco, as far as I know, more so than New World tobacco. It is by vintage. One vintage good, one vintage pretty awful, one vintage fantastic, and it changes in time as well. But you cannot, say, well, that Monte Cristo number 2 from, say, 2008 tasted really strong, and that is how a Monte 2 should taste. And you're tasting it now in 2021, and it tastes pretty light. The characteristics, the flavor characteristics are the same, the general characteristics, but the nuances are affected by the vintage, by the year, by the age. And as so many people don't get that, it's fascinating. But even your own cigars, Carlito, we've done a lot of work and exercises aging them and trying them because, years ago I subscribed to the thought that they simply don't get any better. They're great to start with. 5 years later, they'll taste exactly the same. The tasting notes will be identical. But I actually proved myself pretty well entirely wrong. But they actually do age exceptionally well. But that's not a generalization on New World cigars, because I do also know that some brands don't age. They are good cigars, and 5 years later, they are the same good cigars. They're not necessarily any better or worse. I think a lot of your cigars start off great and actually become even better if that's possible. So that's a lot of trial and error.
From my experience, that is possible. That's why a great merchandiser as yourself, when you have a guest or a customer, someone come in, try a cigar, and they fall in love with it, you would advise them to buy 2 boxes or whatever they can and save them.
Always, absolutely. Doubles the sale. It's all about the uptrade.
Absolutely.
Rich, I think it's time for your riot.
Okay, I'm ready. Mitchell, quick
I can't hear you, Rich. Could you turn your microphone up?
Yes.
I'll get a little closer. Is that any better?
Yes.
A little better.
Yes.
Okay, good. I've got a quick question for you, Mitchell. What percentage of your online business is done with the USA?
0.
0?
Yes. Well, we probably have
Do
maybe
you want to change that?
we maybe have 0.5% in accessories, but we don't sell any tobacco product to the USA. We haven't done for a million years.
Okay, because I remember 20 years ago or so, being an old-time member of the Cigar Family, people were claiming that you were shipping non-free world cigars to them in disguise, and that's how I knew your name so well. Is all those guys saying, if you need that cigar, you got to get to Mitchell at Cigars, and I guess that was just a rumor caused by those folks.
Rich, I deny all knowledge. I never knew that woman.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. If somebody else was using Mitchell's name, they're not as good as coming directly from Mitchell. That I guarantee you.
I can
Exactly.
understand that as well. All righty. Last week I was going to tell a joke, and Brenda said that I had told it last year sometime. But since Mitchell is on, even if it is a repeat, I will repeat it today. St. Peter's at the Heavenly Gates, and two chaps come up, one from Huddersfield, England, and the other is from Ireland. And St. Peter says, hey, you both can get into heaven, but we've got a little backlog right now. So one of you can get in today, and one will have to wait a little while till we can get that sorted out. And they say, well, how are you going to choose? He says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make it easy. Just make a little poem or a little rhyme, and the winner of that contest will get in today. And the first guy from Huddersfield goes, wait a minute, I used to be the poet laureate of England, and I should win this easily. And the other chap from Ireland says, well, I'm just a poor plowman from Ireland. I don't know how I can compete with him. And St. Peter says, well, let's all give it a try. And the first chap from Huddersfield, England goes, on the way to the promised land, a caravan came into view. Oh, the kicker, I'm sorry, I missed the kicker line. St. Peter says, to make it a little more even, you have to use the word Timbuktu in your poem. And the guy from Huddersfield goes, well, I'll try this one first. He says, on the way to the promised land, a caravan came into view. Destination, Timbuktu. And the Irish guy he just throws up his hands and says, I don't know how to compete with that. St. Peter says, we'll give it a go. He says, okay. Well, Tim and I were walking one day, and 3 fair maids came along the way. And since they were 3 and we but 2, I bucked 1 and Tim bucked 2.
Rich, you can say that every week. I'll be happy to hear it again. No, if Rich's voice is a little bit distant today, it's because he's had a very long week. It's been his 50th anniversary, and I'm sure he's been reminiscing of his first 20 years, then his first 30 years, and he's had a very physical week, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I can barely walk. But there's another story. I didn't mention it last week on our 50th anniversary, but when we got engaged, I was a young guy in the clothing business, saving up to get an engagement ring for Brenda. And I said, will you accept my, wedding proposal? And she says, yeah, as soon as you get me a Cuban cigar band, I'll accept your proposal. So it took me a couple of weeks, but still in a little jar, kept it in Brenda's jewelry bag.
Beautiful.
Closet is a little Bolivar band that fit her at the time, and she accepted my proposal. And then a little while later, I was able to get her the ring that she continues to wear now. But back in those days, it was not that far into the embargo, so you could still get some non-free world cigars.
That's beautiful.
Mitchell,
50 years.
one thing that we have to talk about, because Dominic London now is a force. I mean, when you guys united, you brought the cigar world to another dimension. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. With pleasure, Jose. So I knew Dominique and Frederick for some years, just meeting them at various cigar events here, there, and everywhere. And we had a conversation and found that our businesses were very similar in size and in outlook and in plans for the future. And to cut a very long story short, we agreed very rapidly, in fact, from our first serious business meeting, that we should go into business together and we should merge our businesses, which were very similar sized companies. And it was only a matter of how we would engineer the deal to be of maximum benefit to the group. And it's all credit really to Frederick for putting together the merger. And that was completed in March of this year. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of the business, the whole overall Dominique London business. And Frederick and Dominique are Chief Executive Officers of the business. And we are currently integrating all of our systems and expanding. We did our first big expansion, which was opening the La Casa del Habano, or rather purchasing, taking over the La Casa del Habano in Basel, Switzerland. We've currently got another 4 acquisitions with our lawyers progressing in various countries, and we hope to have some announcements before the end of this year still. And we all have our respective experience and expertise, areas of expertise within the group. So far, we are working extremely well together, and it looks like it was a very astute move for all of the shareholders involved. So we are very happy with the merger and the future expansion plans for the business, because we very much believe that 1 and 1 kind of equals 3 with our businesses, and we think it's very important to be strong in this current climate of business and in the tobacco industry. It's more important to be, it's most important to be a strong business rather than little individual businesses. So that was the thinking behind it, if that answers your question.
Mitchell, one question that I ask a lot of people. If you had the opportunity to smoke a cigar with a person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Zino Davidoff.
Wow.
Probably
Great
because
choice.
I'm something of a vintage cigar expert. That is my area of expertise, and I've dealt with Davidoff Cuban cigars for the last 25 years. And he would be my hero. I've read everything about him, every book about him, his book, obviously. And I sell his Cuban cigars, Davidoff Cuban cigars, on a almost daily basis. And I would have loved to have met him. I think it would have been a most educational conversation that I would have had on him.
An
Without a
amazing
doubt.
man, an amazing diplomat, an ambassador of the cigar industry. No
Indeed.
question. A real personality.
My father met him on a few occasions, because my father and my late grandfather would go over to Geneva and buy their cigars from Zino. So they met him, but my father doesn't remember having any great conversations, because it was a bonjour monsieur type of situation.
He was just cool. He was just cool, man. He just walked with that. He was cool. He combed his hair, his accent, and everything about him. He was a lover of life, and he shared that love and spread it to everyone around him.
He's quite brilliant,
Yes.
in every way.
Without a doubt. Mitchell, first of all, I would like to thank you for being our guest. I would like to thank you for what you've done for the industry. I would like to thank you for all, how would you say, the pleasure that you have brought worldwide to thousands and thousands of consumers. But to me, what's most gratifying, because there's a lot of people that you will talk to and don't admit situations and trends, and to hear from a person like you what's happening in the industry, how the markets are changing. To me, because you and I talk, when we meet, we talk again. We have mutual respect. I've been on your show. Carlito's been on your show too, and we're glad to have you there. But to us, it's a pleasure and honor
You're very kind.
having Mitchell Orchant here.
Thank you very much. You're very kind, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope it was relatively interesting at the very least. I'm sorry, Melanie, I couldn't give you more controversial answers.
But I think Carlito has
You
something.
did excellent. It's excellent.
I think Carlito might say a thing or two.
No, of course. No, first of all, thank you so much, Mitchell. I mean, everyone here is going to be an exciting show, and it's going to you're going to bring a lot of information, and the way you express the information you bring forth, and just your candidness. You're just down to earth, true, knowledgeable, experience, czar of the tobacco world. And I know you're very humble. You don't like to hear that, but you've earned it. So, and to the Fuente family, of course, I know that Jeremiah loves you like a brother and has the greatest respect for you. I mean, for many, many years, I've been hearing your name and how you were going to have a big influence in, the consumer's world of cigars because of your personality and because of your love of educating people, which you have done through many, many vehicles of your company. I congratulate you, Frederick and Dominique. I think it's going to be tremendous. Everybody's going to be hearing a lot more of Mitchell worldwide. And I look forward to seeing you many more times, give you a hug. And hopefully someday I could be back in London, when things settle down and normalize. I would just love to come down and everything. And Jeremiah could tell me where he used to be all the time and how he used to get hit by cars because he would cross the street the wrong way and look the wrong way and everything. Because I think I've heard stories about Jeremiah and Joshua in London that I think cannot be revealed publicly. So I'd like to hear it firsthand from him. I send my love to you and everyone and wish you the best. And again, thank you on behalf of all our family of the Meerapfel, Jose Blanco, of course, Melanie Cisco, the kid, and Richard Myberg. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special program, Meet the Professor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Carly.
Melanie, please tell everyone how can they see Mitchell again on our channel.
All right, guys. So be sure to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's tinyurl.com/The Professor Show. You can also go to our Facebook page and hit that bell and also follow us there, like the page as well. It's facebook.com/The Professor Show. Be sure to subscribe and then hit those bells and get notified anytime that we go live so you guys do not miss it, and share it with a friend, either a fun loving friend, we don't care if they smoke or not, or maybe a good loving cigar buddy. That's always nice.
Next week, we will have on the show Scott Pierce, which is the executive director of the PCA. We will talk about the last summit that was last week with people worldwide, talking about all the things that we're facing. And so tune in next Sunday again. So I think it's time for Carlito to say goodbye to everybody. How do we do it?
Well, I wish I would have known I will be given this privilege. I would have had my Stefano Ricci scarf on and everything. But I want to thank everybody for joining us on Meet the Professor. This is history in the making. This will be archived for our children and grandchildren to see. So someday they could learn and follow the footsteps of the greats of the cigar industry. And remember, if you don't do it with passion, don't do it at all. Goodbye, everyone. Take care. Love. From headquarters, Meet the Professor. And remember, Rich was very, very proper today because we did not give the warning that this is filmed out of Switzerland, since probably who knows where it's filmed out of today, and we don't want to get in trouble. So we behaved. God bless you all. See you next week. Same time, same Cuban time, and same Cuban station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios, Mitchell. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you.